There we go. All right, so live from Madison, Alabama, this is Ben McGee, and we are excited today to talk about a new lunch and learn that we have, which we're calling the Shall You Join Us? But before I do that, I think that it's probably prudent for me to take a step back and say thank you to my crew here for excellent support and putting this thing on. Not only do we have fantastic food, making the folks online jealous right here, but we got some good lively entertainment. So the people in the room here, if you don't already work with each other, we're peers. And it's really important that we do some grin and grips, go around the room, come out of your introverted shell for a change. Let's exchange some business cards, because you never know who's going to be the next person that is either going to be your hiring manager, or maybe you're going to hire that person that's in the crowd. All right. A little bit about myself. I've been in the business for right around 20 years, and this is a love-hate relationship that I have with the Linux environment. And this is something that I'm pretty brave about right here. Feeding people with a big belly full of barbecue and then turning off the lights, that's asking for trouble right here, right? Somebody's going to fall asleep on me. But one of the things that I say a love and hate relationship is because when I first got out of University of Florida, one of the bosses that I had at the time when I was working for a financial company, he said that he wanted me to go back and learn how to program Unix at that time. And I was like, okay, well, not really sure what that is. And he said he would pay for it. So I went to the local community college, St. Petersburg Junior College in St. Petersburg, Florida, and took a Unix introduction, or an introduction to Unix class in 1998. And then the follow-on to that was an intro to shell scripting. And I fell in love with how easy it was to make the magic happen. And really, it started to cause me to try to solve some pretty interesting problems. Got into web servers after that, and then Java and the .NET framework came in. But it's kind of interesting now that the evolution of Unix to Linux and whatever the next Nix is, post facto Android, we should be able to continue to evolve and be dynamic and creative. And I think that's really what gets me going and makes me want to continue to do this stuff. All right, so a lot of folks that are new to Linux may not know what a shell is. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to thank Stephanie over here for coming up with the Shall You Join Us. What a clever title. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, she didn't know I was going to call her out there. But did you know that the Bourne shell was created by Jason Bourne? No, I'm just kidding there, right? That'd be kind of cool if it was. It was created by Bell Labs in 1977 by Stephen Bourne, and it's also called the SH shell. SH shell. Well, Linux system developers came out with the Born Again shell, which they must have been Christian, or at least know about the Christian being born again, right? And now we have the, it's based on the SH shell, or the, and then we come now and we have the bash shell. And then you've seen some derivatives here of that. You know, for purposes of what we're going to be doing today, we'll pick one and we'll just go through it. We're not going to go through the different types of shells, but know that you have some variety whenever you're going out and playing with, whether it's Kali Linux or Ubuntu or CentOS or Red Hat. You definitely can configure these bad boys to do just about anything that you want if you have enough time and you're willing to learn some things. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show a simple echo. I remember growing up, we would go into some store, probably, I don't know if Walmart existed, it was probably Kmart or something back then, but they would always have computers. And I'm talking about when I'm when I was under the age of 12. They would always have computers there. And I would always be really, really interested in going in there and just running a simple program to make the computer do something and return it back to the screen to me. And a lot of people that have never done that before, usually the awe factor goes away after you actually start to do it. And that's really what we're going to talk about here first, shell scripts. So the next one here, you can see that I have some cheat sheets here. The sleep command is to try to pause the program, and in this case I have 5. So if you just hit 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hopefully it returns right around there. So it's 5 seconds. So if you want to use the sleep command in a program, it is very beneficial. Why? Why would we use something like the sleep command in a program? Okay, could be used for drives to mount, yeah, because that may take a little while, right? Maybe we have a sub process that kicks off and we need it to return before it can actually give us this next part right here. Maybe we kick off a program, it spins off a thread, the thread comes back, and we didn't let it sleep, so it would probably cause it to break. In that case, you may use something like the sleep program. So one of the cool things here is that we can instantiate a thing called a variable. And a variable is something that we can establish by just setting it with the name, whatever moniker you want to use, and then an equal sign sets that variable to whatever you set it to. In this case, it's an integer. I'm just going to be doing 32, but you could do whatever you want to here. And then what I can do is use my echo command, and then I have to say $, whatever the variable name is, and it'll pop back that actual variable name. So if I wanted to say Ben equals 43, then I could say echo the variable name, and it should return back whatever I popped into that variable name. So these are some basic things right here. But as we continue to crawl here before we get to the sprint, we're going to clear the screen and then jump back here into this. One of the things here that we have is this simple if-then-else statement. And what we've done here with the if-then-else is we've gone through and said if the variable is equal to 32, then echo the variable is equal to 32. Else, sleep 2 seconds and say the variable is not equal to 32. And paste this into here. What do I expect? The variable is equal to 32, right? So if I was to go in there and either dynamically set the variable through runtime operand, or just go in there and statically set that variable to whatever, if it's not 32, it will continue to do its thing until I allow it to quit, or in this case, it'll just check that variable and then return back whether it's a Boolean true or false in this case. And that's really what this goes into. So the last thing here is this goofy looking thing at the top of the screen. This goofy looking thing at the top of the screen is the pound exclamation point. We call that what? Shebang. So we got pound bang, and then a /, and then we're going to go into the bin to make sure that we can use the bash, the born again shell that we were talking about at the start here. So by doing that, that instantiates the shell to allow us to hopefully execute it, but not yet. That lets the operating system know that, hey, this shell program could be run as an actual script. However, in this case, we can't do that unless we get this thing that's called the chmod. And if you've never used that before, you can go and read the manual. Anything in Linux you can read the manual on. And in this case, we'll go man chmod to actually look at some of the good stuff that chmod brings to the table. So it changed the file. Oh my goodness, what does that mean? Mode bits. So the way that it operates, the way that it interacts with the operating system is how the chmod works. In this case, excuse me, if we needed to change it to a script, we would use the chmod x or u plus x script and be able to eventually get this thing to work for us. So in this case, I should be able to do that with this first script, but before I do that, let me do an ls. And right now you can see that this first script that I have here is level 1. This is the part 1 here of this shall you join us. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say chmod, chmod, so change modify. And I'm going to tell it to make it executable, but now I got to pass it the script name that I want to make it executable for. So what did it do? It came back, it didn't say anything. That means that I was successful. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So if I go back to ls, you see the difference between up here and down here. What's the green tell me? It's executable now. So now we should be able to type period / and then the executable that we want to run, and it initiates the echo, it counts to 5, then it tells us what the variable is, and booyah, the shell script now just ran. I made it into an executable. So everything that I just did up there individually works now in that shell script. So usually, as engineers, especially when we're trying to prove our concepts, what we try to do is we try to do unit testing. And in unit testing, in each one of these is what I did. I went through each one methodically and was able to prove that prior to executing the entire program. So I knew each unit worked prior to execution of the entire program. And that's the way that we do it. So any questions about that? The part 1, before we continue to make the magic happen here. And that should be a level 2. Sorry for the Easter egg there. But if you need to jump in and do some simple troubleshooting on Linux, then how are you going to be able to do that? Well, that's where we're going to jump into here. So the next part that we'll get into is the part 2 of our awesome episode live on Facebook here. So you can either go old school and go command line edit files using VI, or even something like Vim, which is a more recent tool. Or you can use what's built into the X Windows in Linux, this thing called gedit. So I'm going to launch the level 2 text file that I have. And then I'm going to throw in an ampersand here. And the ampersand's going to actually free up my window and give me back the ability to interact with that file at runtime here. So if I didn't use the ampersand here, I would lock up this terminal. But since I'm throwing the ampersand in there, it'll spin off a separate process and allow me to continue to still have full control of this terminal right here. So if I launch this, it tells me it's done. And now I can actually come down here and you can see it's spun off a separate process, 4469. And now I have this gedit text editor that we're going to magically go through here. So the second part of this is pretty cool, and I think I was tiling it down here on purpose. So give me a second here. So the second part here is talking a little bit about some of the things that some of the mid-tier people may end up doing. So you remember those jobs that we were talking about that are in high demand earlier? What are some of those practical, simple troubleshooting things that you may need to? One of the kind of the funny things that we said, do you want to grep me? Well, it's the same thing here. We want to actually go through and try to find files by looking for a specific type of string. So who out here can tell me what is the Etsy password file? It's a target. That's right. So you know, on the Linux side of the house, that is where we want to keep track of every registered user that has access to the system. So from a attacker's perspective, if we can get that Etsy password file, it's on like Donkey Kong. And by doing that, now we can have the ability to go through and see what users are on the operating system. We may be able to get to the shadow file, to get the hash of the password. So those are some of the things that you'll see. So check it out here. If you want to follow along, feel free to. In this case, I'm going to grep the user CyberProtex. Then I'm going to look it up in the Etsy password file. So it returns back this goofy looking thing here that tells me the username, the encrypted password, the user ID or the UID. It'll tell me the JID or the group ID, and then the full name of the user, which is right here, if you see it right in the middle. And then it'll tell me the home directory of the user, and then what shell they're using. So the profile, setting up the profile for this right here. So that is all separated by the colon. Each one of those are separated by a colon, and we'll talk here a little bit about regular expressions in probably the next 4 or 5 minutes. But that is a little bit more advanced. So what are we interested in here? Well, let's say here that you're trying to troubleshoot to see degrading a performance on your operating system. You can go into the Etsy password and see if there's any unfamiliar users that are in there. And if you see one, then that probably means you're in trouble because somebody's already on your system. But what can we do? Well, we can go in and start to look at other things like, for instance, the cat. And this is a command line utility used to read the contents of a file. So in this case, I'm going to say Etsy LSB release here, and I should get a little bit of information back on the operating system that I'm running. In this case, it's an Ubuntu 16.04, and then it tells me a little bit more information about code name and description. So all that is available through the cat command. So it doesn't actually open the file, it'll just return the contents of that file back to the screen at runtime, which is kind of neat if you've never seen that before. I use cat all the time. And then another familiar tool is this thing called find, and it does exactly what you tell it to. And if you're not familiar with the syntax, then there's a little bit of a growing pain with the find. But once you get familiar with it, it becomes a magical tool that allows you to be awesome in Linux. Okay? So we have a file here that is called BadOff. And what this does is if I use the tilde and the / here, it'll look in my home directory for this thing called BadOff. So I have 2 of them here. I got one in the shell you join us here, which is where I'm at. If I did a little PWD, present working directory, it tells me that's where I'm at right now. But I also have one back in the directory before, so up a level. So if I wanted to go back and look at that one, I would just do a change directory space ... in order to get back to that. But we're going to play with that one here in the next level. And I'm going to specifically talk about why we chose this BadOff here momentarily. But before we do, are there any questions on the grep, the cat, or the find? Because those are some pretty cool tools that you definitely will be using. Yeah?
On find, you can use a wildcard, correct? If you don't know maybe the file extension, if there is file extension, or the full name, correct?
Yes, I would be prepared to get up and get yourself a cup of coffee, though. Because it may take a little bit of time because if you're doing an asterisk, a wildcard, that means you probably don't remember what you called the file. Exactly. And then if you tell it to search the entire root of evil on the hard drive, then you're going to be there a little while, depending on how big the disk is. But thank you. Yes, absolutely. You can use the asterisk. Last but not least, we get into the hopefully coming full circle about some of the things that we've talked about. So the level 3 here, we're going to talk, it's more of a brisk walk rather than a jog like I talked earlier, because some of the more intermediate or advanced people, you guys probably do some of these things, but if you've never seen this before, then stay tuned because I'm going to show you a couple of things. One of the things, first and foremost, is going to be this hackme.cyberprotex.com. If you've never been out here before, I would encourage you to do that. What we've done is we've taken the Matildae and put it out here and allow our customers to come out and play with some pretty neat types of attacks. So if it's been a little while since you've done that, feel free to go out there and play with it. One caveat, we force you to log in. So we get your Gmail. That way, if you're doing something goofy on that, we know who it is, right? Now, when you put up a website like this, and you have something that's called hackme.cyberprotex.com, you're asking for trouble. And we expected that. So we did some things to hopefully hedge our bets and protect ourselves. And it has stood the test of time so far. But I will tell you that that is a great segue for the next demonstration that we're going to get into. So what we did is we took the log files from 2 days ago off of this system right here. Okay? And you never know what you're going to get whenever you start digging through some log files. How many of you guys have ever taken a look at a log file before? So there we go. You hear the moan in the crowd, and I can tell you straight up and down, there's nothing fun about looking through a log file, unless you know how to slice and dice it with the little ninja skills, and that's what we're going to show you right here, is how to do that. So using some of those simple commands that we walked, or we crawled, and now we're walking, now we're briskly walking or jogging. Now we're going to get into having a little bit more fun. So we took the log files and we integrated it into this demonstration here. So let me show you what we're going to do. All right, so if you recall here, I'm just going to go ahead and do the same thing. Bring up that I did before. I'll bring up gedit. And I'll go level 3 in this particular case. And then I'll just do a .sh. And I want the terminal back, so give me the ampersand in this case. Okay? So in this case right here, the level 3 starts to get into a little bit more squirrely, right? So we're going to still use the echo command just because we can. And I'll clear the screen so we get a fresh sheet of music to play with here. So in this case, I'm just going to paste the echo just to let you know that, hey, we're initializing the third part of the shell right here. Bear with me. And now what I'm going to do is if I was to do a cat on this log file here, if I took a look at the log file's got what, 86, 39, 55, that's bytes. So what's that, 86 megs right there? Does that seem right? So about 86 megs. So if I did a cat, tried to open up that into memory, we'd be here a little while. We'd be here a little while. But I could do some creative things with it. I could actually pipe it to more. So I could use a pipe command and do it to more. And then that would return it back to the screen very, very quickly. And I could go through that if I had all the time in the world by hitting the command or hitting the space bar. But ain't nobody got time for that. We ain't got time for that. So let's go through and see if we can do some pretty interesting things on this. So first and foremost, we're going to use the grep command. Like we were talking about it earlier. You remember, it searches the log file. In this case, it's not going to be any different. So we're going to look at the number of failed attempts for authentication to this hackme.cyberprotex.com. Okay? That's what we're going to look at. So I'll return it. And oh my goodness, it just barfed back to the screen here, all of this information. And I got it at like 16 font, so it may actually seem more than it is, and that's great for the demonstration. But I'm scrolling up. I'm trying to go as fast as I can, guys. But you can see that There's some that are familiar that you see keep coming back. Somebody's got some Autobots out there. But also, you can also see something that is pretty similar here. It looks like people are trying to not connect over port 80 here, but they're trying to connect over SSH to it. Well, we didn't authorize that. Hold on. Wait a second. Somebody's trying to connect via SSH to it, and they didn't ask for our permission. Well, shame on them, right? Well, fortunately enough, this ain't our first rodeo, so we expected some idiots out there to try to do things like that. And how do we try to thwart that? Well, if I told you, then it wouldn't be secure anymore, and we probably would have some more trouble than we have with having hackme.cyberprotex.com. Well, just like you know, we're trying to be as efficient as possible here. So what I'm going to do is I'll clear the screen. And let's say here that I wanted to see the total number of unique IP addresses in the, for the failed attempts. First I want to look at the failed attempts. And what I can do here is I can take that same grep command that we had, and I'm going to pipe it here, that's the pipe, to this count with count or word count, and I'm going to say spit it out to the terminal for me using the -L option. So right now we got 1,302 IP addresses that we pulled from this log file. So that means that there's 1,302 IP addresses that show up in that log file. Well, that's not good enough, though. That's not good enough, because it's going to take me all day long to go through those 1,300 IP addresses. So now we get into this next part here.
Is that counting lines or individual IPs?
This is individual IP addresses right there. So check this out right here. If I go into the next here, I can actually list them out by doing the same, still grepping the failed in the log, but now instead I'm also grepping this output here through this garbage. Oh my gosh, Ben, now you done lost me. Oh boy. And I take that garbage right there and I sort it, and I'm looking for a unique. Well, what's this garbage right here? Well, thank God for regular expressions. So whether we're looking for input validation or misconfigurations on operating systems, which, oh, by the way, the Vulnerability Genius does both of them. We'd love to show you a demo privately if you have time in the future, so schedule that with us. But if you've never seen regular expressions before, then you are really missing out on life. And what that does for us is it gives us the ability to take any file and allows us to search for specific things. Oftentimes, people look at it and they are daunted by the regular expressions. Well, fortunately, some smarter people than me have gone out and made it a little bit easier for us to look at Boolean commands, or the ability to group objects together, or to try to rationalize and quantify like we just did before and give us a numeric value for the return of the operand we're looking for. So if we go out to a specific website out here, which I have right here, this is regexer.com, regexer.com. And if I take what I have here in my demo right here, and I put that into that regexer, so I'm just going to show you here. I'm showing apples to apples here. And I just give it an IP address. What it's going to do here is this beautiful website actually decomposes my regex for me. And anybody that's done regex before, you know what I'm talking about? How beautiful is this right here? Having a tool that actually tells you what the regex is doing. It'll also tell you how much you suck with your regex commands, which I'm the first one to tell you. It takes some time to learn it, so having a tool like this is awesome. So this is, let me see here. Let me see if I can zoom in here a little. So this is regexr.com. regexr.com. And there's a number of them out there. This one integrates with GitHub. So this is one that we like to use. But you can use whatever ones that you want. regexr.com. So we start off with telling it that we have a boundary. We give it the boundaries, the beginning boundary and the end boundary. And that's going to be the syntax that we give right here with the word boundary and then the end word boundary right here. The start and end of a string. That's essentially what we're telling it here. In this case, we just hover over it here. Now we're trying to group it, what we're looking for. And in this case, what are we looking for here? Anybody tell me what we're looking for here?
Each octet.
All right, we're looking for each octet that we have. We got a little dot right here. And we're looking for digits that they could possibly be 3 characters in length. So if you're familiar with the octets, we can get up to 255, 255, 255, 255, right? So really, 0 to 255 will give us 256. But we're looking for 3 characters in the first octet, and I give it a sample input string to test it to make sure. And then I have a quantifier here, which in this case, it's matching between whatever I have before. Show me the matches. And then again, I'm looking at the digits of what I want to be able to look at. In this case is the IP address. And then I end the match of the string in this with the end tag right here. All right? So we can spend a whole day talking about you could make this regex a little bit more efficient, which I'm sure somebody in here probably could. However, for me, this works. So we're going to go ahead and run with it. In this particular case, I'm going to go ahead and list the specific unique IP addresses. Before I was barfing out all the IP addresses. Now I want to look for the unique ones that are out there. So I pipe the grep, the first grep that I have on the log file. I do a little pipe right here, a little reverse zombie-dob, and I run it to a regular expression, right? This little regular expression. And then I pipe it again. I say, hey, that ain't good enough. Sort it for me. That's a bubble sort because everybody likes things sorted. And then I say, give me just the unique ones. I pipe it again. So I'm constantly playing with the data on the command line. And that's one of the reasons why not only do we love shell scripting, being able to interact with the shell on the Linux side of the house, but with PowerShell, it's very, very similar in the way that you can string together commands to make a one-liner that is magical. And we'll show that next month. So in this case, it spits out, and I could pipe this to, or I could write it to a file in sorted order here, unique IP addresses that come back with that grep and regex that I have. But you're probably thinking to yourself, well, wait a minute, Ben, hold on. How many of them are there? Because I ain't got time to go through and count all those things, right? Maybe you're not thinking that. Maybe you're not thinking that. Well, I can do the count like I did before and just say, give me the count and bring it back. And boom, I have 194 unique IP addresses that we're trying to SSH into my hackme.cyberprotex.com. Now, there's some fancy tools out there that you can go and use, but we got to make sure that we keep the honest folks honest by knowing how to be command line ninjas. Because how many times has a sales engineer come to you and told you that they got the secret sauce that's going to maybe make it rain, or that can catch everything and it's the all-fell swoop? Well, it's happened to me a bunch when I was at SAIC and a few of the other places that I've worked at. And I got tired of taking people's word for it, so I used the trust but verify method. And in that case, you can actually go in, do a proof of concept on a data set, be able to take a vendor's magical product that they tell you, do that same sort of proof of concept, and then does it match? Because I know mine works. If it doesn't match, then what does that tell us about the product that they have? They're going to probably come back with some sort of excuse for us, why it didn't give me the exact same number. But most of the time it means that, hey, they're probably, if I don't trust you right off the get-go, then how do I know I can count on your product to catch the bad stuff that's coming on my network? So the practical example in this case is a log file that's massive, and being able to very, very quickly go through that log file with regular expressions to be able to do some cyber ninja on it, and with the intent that you can bring back, in this case right here, the number of attempts to attack our website. So what does that tell you? Well, that tells you that that's the end of our show. And at this point, I think we got some door prizes. Is that correct? We got some door prizes? Yeah. Any questions? Do we want to put your names in door prizes?